I'm excited to be here. I threw away the standard presentation I use after yesterday's talks because this is a different kind of place. And I also felt that the best thing I could do today is talk about how you can bring to life an idea, a trans-tech concept, and bring it to market. And so I usually don't talk about myself. It's just not my style. But I don't know how I can explain it to you without talking about my personal journey as we're going through and talking about the company and also talking about the frontier that we're all a part of. So I apologize up front. It's totally unscripted, but it really is for this conference. And it's a result of the great talks I saw yesterday. So let's get started. At the very beginning, when you want to do something that changes the world, and you really are thinking about a new idea, you are totally alone. I mean, basically, there's a thought, and that thought has a feeling to it, and it's so fragile. That thought can be crushed by anyone, you included, and you're not even sure what it is. You can't even express it sometimes. It's like I said, more than an idea. It has a life to it, and I call this a thread. And what I want to talk about today is going to be centered around this thread. And the thread for me is sort of the guide that holds everything together. It's how you make decisions. It's the key to recruiting people like you, and like me, for example, on my team, to recruiting backers, to making choices, endless choices, forks in the road. What do you emphasize? What do you do? What do you not do relating to product, people, and even just vision? What does a product do? It all begins with a thread. So our thread, I think, is a vision to unlock human potential for 1 billion people by accessing the brain. And to me, that resonated, and I'll explain why as I move forward and tell you about the path we took. But that vision, and I'm not the only one to have it though, but that vision was at least my thread, and it's the entire focus of Think. All our employees, all our resources, every decision we make is consistent with that thread. And that's not easy, because to unlock human potential, you have to be committed to the science behind that. You have to have a way to access the brain, if that's our thread. And you have to be willing to do it in a manner that can reach 1 billion people over time. So those are all fundamental requirements, and they guide us. So there's a journey you take. The thread is the beginning, and you're following it. And it's foggy, and you're all alone. You really are first alone. There's resistance, there's doubt, and there's just no roadmap. Nothing can be seen. You're not even sure where the product's how it's going to materialize, and how you're going to even bring it to market, and who's going to be with you. But as you begin to follow the thread, something happens when you're traversing the terrain. You start seeing maybe one peak. You start to see something, and you approach it, and you start to follow it. And I'm going to walk you through this process of following and finding peaks, at least for us, and how important that is, and how that shapes your strategy and the vision for the product. This is a process that happens, I think, over and over again, which is why I'm telling you about it. I think it's something you'll go through as well. Anyone here who wants to take trans tech from a concept to a reality is going to go through this whole journey. So peak number one, it's going to sound like common sense at first. At least in my world, if you want to change the lives of 1 billion people by accessing the brain, you need a breakthrough technology, and you need a revolutionary application. For us, breakthrough technology is neuromodulation, How do we activate, signal, communicate with peripheral nervous systems or the central nervous system, some type of network that we have built in. And the revolutionary application, again, will seem like common sense. It's everyday people, real life, everyday people. Why is that a peak? Why is that even an insight? Well, you see, especially 5 years ago, you have to think about it 5 years ago when I started. There's a mantra, just like there's a mantra in biology, or there used to be a mantra for many of us when we first studied college, that DNA goes to RNA, goes to protein. And that was the mantra. That was not supposed to be, that was infallible. Well, there's a mantra too when it comes to technologies in our space. And the mantra is that academia leads to medical, leads to consumer. And that mantra is dead wrong. Dead wrong. If you want to achieve greatness and impact people and change their lives, that mantra will not get you there. So in addition to having a thread that seems, that's barely there, now the first peak, at least in our story and with my team, takes us to a place where now we have to challenge a mantra that most people think is true, that we can't go directly to everyday people and impact their lives, directly with a product. And so that was a first recognition that we were committed to that. To reach 1 billion people, we had to do that. And it wasn't because we would try to avoid the FDA or minimize regulations. It's because it just doesn't work any other way when you're serious about a trans tech concept for the masses. So that was a key insight. I think it's a key insight for many of you, that many of you will apply as well as you go forward, regardless of whether you're doing services, software, or hardware. And in our company, I think it shaped everything. It shaped the investors. It shaped the team members. It shapes our strategy, the risks we take, how we think about things, price points, and solutions to problems, all around a consumer mindset. Consumer and medical are opposites in many ways. Even if they share the same technology, you are talking opposites in every way in a company, which is why you have to choose one or the other. And for us, it was consumer. Then we kept walking. In our team, we have our thread. It's taking shape. We know what we want to do. We're starting to get ideas of how maybe to approach it technically, doing research, which I'll tell you about, how much research we did initially. And again, we're walking, we see another peak. And this peak, equally, perhaps even more important, this is a peak that when we get close, we start seeing, wow, this is not about changing people. This is not about making people different. This is about giving people full access to their capabilities, to their abilities. They have full access. Imagine that. Personally, for me, that really made a difference. It's just to my core to think that one day I can access my energy, my motivation, my calm, my focus, my creativity, my decision-making abilities, really self-control, all types of things that I know I have. I just can't call them up when I need them instantly. But if I could, not with my technology, just if I could do it any way, it would be transformative for me, for my family, for my friends, for anyone I know, and the people who work in my company and the world. It was really that insight that it was all about access. How do you give people access to their full potential? But what does this mean, really? It means that if you think about it, again, we're going to hit another, not a mantra, but at least philosophy. The brain-machine interface and the singularity is a powerful movement. And I agree I think it's the most important frontier of the century, is the merger of biology and technology in us, right? But I disagree with many of the predictions and how this is going to happen, where we basically sort of become machines over time. I think that is dead wrong. 1 billion people will never do that, because no one wants to be a machine, right? They want to be awake, want to be alive. And the way you do that, if you want to have more, if you want to achieve more, feel more, enjoy more, the way you do that is a symbiosis, right? Symbiosis between technology and our minds and bodies, which means that technology is there to give us access, full access. And one day in the future, we will have it. And we want to be a part of that, but it won't be just think, of course. It's an entire set of technologies and movements over decades that will give us that. But that is a vision. Symbiosis is, I'm convinced, the focus of all the efforts this century will be around that. We will all embrace it over time because it makes total sense, and it's something that we all choose personally and want to have if it helps us, right? If it truly is good for us. So that was the second peak, a peak where, again, may sound initially like common sense, but nobody else was doing this 3 years ago, which is focusing an entire company, set of people motivated, entrepreneurial, backed with resources to develop purely effects and a product that were all about accessing something you already have built in, not trying to make you smarter, not trying to make you remember more in some way or to help you learn faster like the Matrix and the sci-fi movies. It's not cognitive, it's emotional. And that's the other key thing about this whole symbiosis, is that it is all about emotion. And I'm the last guy to say that. I got to tell you, I was trained as an engineer and would never have spoken this 5 years ago. But I can tell you there's no effect that we have come up with or even thought about that doesn't have a strong emotional component. No matter how cognitive, intellectual you think you come up with an effect, I will show you that it has an emotional component to it. So that symbiosis is about being human and about technology making us more human. And that's peak number 2. Now what I want to do, before we go on to another peak, is just talk about how we accomplish what we accomplish, because we want to do this by accessing the brain. We want to access the brain because the brain is the access point to your body. So it's not that we want to segregate your mind from your body. We want to access the brain so we can impact your body, so you can impact your body basically and access it. And a key thing to remember or to know about us is that we're a scientific company at our core. So not only do we follow our thread, dedicate ourselves to consumers, and then we knew we wanted to provide access to people with our technology, we then had to commit to that. What does that mean? We may be the only consumer electronics company ever to spend their first $3 out of $4 million doing research, applied research. Why did we do that? Well, the pillar of neuroscience that exists is great, but nobody was willing to do the work that needed to be done to develop effects for consumers that they could feel to access something they've got. It's just not something you get funded for. It's not something you study for medicine or to cure a disease. It's just not something that is going to happen any other place than a venture. So we did that. And out of that, out of years of effort, thousands of subjects, a number of key innovations, came out the first set of effects and product that are based on triggering physiological responses. So it's not magic. We're consistent with 30 years of neuroscience. What we do is we activate cranial nerves on the face and neck that signal a particular part of the brain, the RAS center, to basically modulate stress response, modulate sympathetic and parasympathetic activity, which energizes you or relaxes you. And that's what we did. And that journey to figure that out took years, to build the science and prove it to ourselves and then publish it. We just published a peer-reviewed article, top journal last month. So we had to do it that way. It's not, and the reason is, again, the thread. Unlock human potential for 1 billion people by accessing the brain. Well, we need a way to access the brain, and that's what we had to find first. Without that, there's no point in moving forward. I don't have time to go through our data. Like I said, we published it, but we proved that these effects are called vibes work by changing your physiology. And we have a number of ways of doing that, and we proved it like basically 4 different ways, and all of that was published. It involved stress biomarkers in saliva, biometrics, IR thermography, and a ton of a ton of feedback and scoring by people, all of it against controls, all of it against the placebo effect. When we started 2.5 years ago, we were the placebo effect. In other words, the active and control groups were totally overlapping, completely. Okay? It took us 2.5 years and 4,000 people to make it so that 80% of people can find a good or great effect with our first product. So science is important. Adam Gasly mentioned that yesterday, how much work it takes to validate and really be sure to move forward. So now we're walking. Our team is bigger. We have our thread. We have the first 2 peaks. It's all about impacting real people. It's all about the symbiosis and giving full access. We have a way to access the brain, and we get to the 3rd peak, which in our case is how are we going to get eventually to 1 billion people? What system is going to work? Because if it's the size of an MRI and it costs $1 million, $100,000, even $10,000, it's not going to impact 1 billion people over time. So it took a lot of, again, completely blank, out-of-the-box thinking. Everything I'm telling you, by the way, is very much 0 to 1, right? This is Peter Thiel. This is 0 to 1. We started with 0. You have nothing, okay? No roadmap, nothing. No way to do it. How do you figure out, navigate with your thread, with the peaks? How do you move through and find a way forward? So here, again, insight, how we basically innovated. I'll show you our first product, but the first product is just the beginning of this type of thinking. How do you distribute this to 1 billion people over time? And that became our 3rd peak and our 3rd insight, that to do that, we had to simplify and rethink everything that had been done in brain stimulation and nerve stimulation to come up with a whole new paradigm of a platform. Here is our product. Truly, I can't tell you how proud of it I am. It is the first of its kind. Doesn't mean it's the end-all, be-all. It is the first of its kind. And it is the first product you can use to calm yourself down or energize yourself in 10 minutes. You're pushing a button and changing how you feel. It has hardware. It has software. It has electrochemistry. It is a closed system because everything has to be tuned together. I could tell you many stories about the iterations of how we would make things better in each of the pieces, and then when we brought it together, the effects would be gone. And we'd lose a month and a half just trying to figure out what happened. 20% theory, 80% empirical. That's what this field is about. How do you figure it out? How do you iterate, churn? But here is this product, right? It exists and is a proof point. And I really encourage everyone to try it, demo it, because I think, I know it's really going to be historically important. But it is the first. It's not. It's got a lot of things to improve, and we know what they are. Not for today's talk, though. But I will talk about the future. And the future, now let's think about this. So the physical embodiment of these platforms, like the one I just showed you, are going to change dramatically. So over time, they're going to be, for example, it could be a disposable product. It could be a sticker or a tattoo one day. That's the power of consumer tech. When the field gets behind something, the amount of innovation, miniaturization, just flexible electronics, all the things we've read about, thin film batteries, everything will play a role here and drive the form factors to a point that'll be fascinating for everyone to see and affordable for everyone to use. As that's happening, though, there's a central reservoir of effects we call vibes, and those vibes are building. That means that across verticals in fitness, mindfulness, motivation, productivity, you build effects that are more targeted, more specific, and even more fascinating. You start to combine them with a coach you trust, with a celebrity you trust, with a mentor you trust, with any experience, any sensory experience. Could be music, could be VR. You basically combine the mental shift with something else to make it even more powerful, to help you get ready before a workout, to recover, to help you sleep better, to help you get motivated before a talk here, or, just unwinding when you go home. The things that everybody faces, everybody has stress. This is real life. We all deal with people, with our health and fitness, with our families and friends, every day, every week. And it's not easy to do the basic things for brain health, which is, in the end, what this is all about, is being healthy. That symbiosis leads to happiness, joy, because you're healthy. So I've been at this, 5 years. In 20 minutes, I can't possibly describe the journey. All I can tell you is the thread is the key. And yet it's only the beginning. Everything I've told you, including that we launched our product, thousands of people now have it in their hands, and many thousands more will have it in this quarter by end of year. All of that is an amazing thing, but it's the beginning, a couple of chapters of a very long book. A book where all of you are involved, all of us are involved, because we need each other. And it goes back to that thread. It goes back to that center. Because imagine your threads, my thread, together, what they make. When you realize your threads, we realize our thread. That is the movement, right? And what I want to do, really what this is for, in my view, if you take one thing away today, is I want you to find your thread, or at least find it again, or maybe you have it already. But let's take if you guys don't mind, let's take just 30 seconds. And all of us just close our eyes and find your thread. Just feel it. What is the thing that drives you, moves you, guides you? When you have it, it's just pure goodness, and it's the right thing to pursue. And again, thank you for everyone for inviting me here from the conference, and I hope you find your thread and follow it. Thank you.